In this video, I'm going to be going over the REL Classic 98 subwoofer. Ever since 1990, when REL was founded, they have produced some of the most highly respected subwoofers in the industry. And the Classic 98 draws its design from REL subwoofers of the past, but has all of their current technology for performance that has made both music lovers and home theater enthusiasts love their products for decades. Now let's get started. Most subwoofers these days are a matte black or high gloss black box with the woofer facing forward. But if you go back a few decades, subwoofers looked more like a nice piece of furniture. And I suspect this is because back then, home theaters did not yet exist, with their usually easy way to hide a subwoofer. Now in those early days, a subwoofer had to fit into a living room and blend with the rest of the furniture. REL and almost all subwoofer companies of the day produced beautiful wooden subwoofers that housed a downward firing woofer. And in that time frame, no one had to think about subwoofers handling those massive explosions, so the focus was really only on music and blending the subwoofer perfectly with the main stereo speakers. Now as home theater exploded, and so with it a demand for subwoofers, most companies switched to the black box that you see today. Fast forward to today, and the resurgence of vinyl and big interest in owning classic vintage audio gear has changed the landscape. While home theater is extremely popular, there are large groups of music lovers who put together a vintage stereo system in lieu of a home theater. And there's also some people who have done both. Now these systems are usually not hidden away in a bonus room or separate space and might be the focal point of a modern home. REL was pretty astute to see this shift and introduced the Classic 98 subwoofer for just that customer. They wanted to make something beautiful that would pair up well with vintage or reissue vintage speaker systems while giving you a whole lot of great REL technology. If you're in the market for a subwoofer of any type, you've found the best source with audio advice. We have a team of passionate home theater and music lovers with a massive amount of combined experience. Now, if you need help setting up your subwoofer or any other gear, we are just a phone call away with lifetime support. Now, we also have a huge library of articles and videos on getting the best from your system. And we hope you'll support our business by choosing to purchase your subwoofer from audioadvice.com. Now, before I get into all the details of the Classic 98, I do need to go over one of the things that REL does differently from almost all other subwoofer companies. They have believed in this philosophy from the beginning, and it has certainly proven itself over time. But when you go to connect up your first REL subwoofer, especially if you've owned other subwoofers in the past, you might be a little bit confused. Now, REL was started because the founders of REL were not happy with other subwoofers on the market. They prefer a method of adding a subwoofer to a music system that is pretty interesting. If you have ever used a subwoofer, you know that it will connect up to a subwoofer output via an RCA or balanced audio cable. REL gives you that option as well, but they highly recommend that you connect it up via a high-level cable, and they include a long one in the box with all of their subwoofers that use this method. Now, high-level means that it will be connected in parallel with your speaker wires at the back of your power amp, integrated amp, or receiver. You simply add all these small speaker cables to your speaker connections, and the other end has a single connector that plugs into the rear of the REL subwoofer. The REL subwoofer is not actually powered by your amplifier, but gets its signal feed that way. This actually has a few advantages here. With the signal passing through your power amp first, the REL sub gets fed the sonic character of your amp rather than just a sub out where the signal never goes through your power amp. Now, while the differences in sound of power amps can be debated, most people would agree that they do sound different, especially tube amplifiers. Another advantage is that the main signal going to your left and right speakers is not filtered in any way. It stays completely true to the source and never passes through any kind of crossover, which is typical of subwoofer connections. REL believes letting your main speakers naturally roll off, then tuning the subwoofer to kick in where they drop off is better musically than splitting the signal with an electronic crossover, which in almost all cases these days will need to digitize the signal. This method also lets you connect up a great subwoofer to a high-performance system that doesn't have a subwoofer out. As a matter of fact, most great gear, especially if it has vacuum tubes or is vintage audio gear, has no subwoofer out. When you add a REL subwoofer to your system, you will start out by doing the same things you would do with any subwoofer, which is finding the best location for bass performance. Now, we have help guides and videos on this that I've linked below. And once you find the best physical location, that's where the REL setup is a little more tedious, but we really do feel that it's worth it. If you have a system with a subwoofer out and variable crossovers, you can usually play with everything from your listening chair using the remote control. With a REL, you'll be moving around a lot, and you can save a lot of time if you have a helper in this situation. You're trying to find two things: the crossover point where the subwoofer needs to start doing its job, and the best level for the subwoofer once you have that point set. Now there are two knobs on the back of the REL that control these two things. I find it a whole lot easier if I'm just sitting in the chair listening, and then I have someone making these fine adjustments while I sit there. Then I can blend the subwoofer so well that you would only know that it's there when you turn it off and think, something is missing. Now you might ask, well, what about a home theater system in the LFE feed, which stands for low frequency effects? That signal only comes out of a subwoofer out in a home theater system. Well, REL has you covered, as their subs also have an LFE input. And get this, it also has its own level control. This lets you blend a REL sub perfectly for the vinyl side of your system, and if the same system does your home theater, you can have a different level for all of those big explosions. Now these features are just some of the things that make REL subwoofers very unique, and you can find them all on the new Classic 98 subwoofer. The REL Classic 98 comes in a beautiful sealed walnut cabinet with a 10-inch downward firing woofer. REL went back to a paper cone driver, as most vintage subs of that era used paper cones, but they put in all of their latest tech into making it far better than anything from an earlier time frame. The outer 2/3 of the cone uses a hot pressed, lightweight paper material with an inner cap of a premium air-dried paper. This combination makes the driver stiffer than anything from their past. Like most subwoofer drivers of earlier times, a natural butyl surround is used. The woofer is powered by a very fast and dynamic 300 watt Class D power amp, and REL's latest filter technology is also used to create a seamless blend with your main speakers. We were very curious to see how the Classic 98 would sound, and also wondered how it would compare to the T9X, which is about the same price. REL says that their T9X is faster, deeper, and more detailed, but if you have a vintage or new issue vintage speakers, the Classic 98 should be a great match sonically and just look fantastic with them. Now we paired it up with a pair of JBL Classic L82 speakers, which are an 8-inch two-way design. We played around with the subwoofer positioning to get it dialed in, and even found in our particular room with a downward firing subwoofer driver, the bass was better blended and had far more output in the 180-degree phase position. Should you get one of these cool subs, be sure to try the switch both ways. Now, with the L82, the Classic 98 was a great match. It gave the entire experience at least an extra octave of bottom end and blended really well with their type of presentation. We even felt the mid-range improved a bit with the extra lower extension that the Classic 98 provided. Staying in the JBL Classic family, we paired up the Classic 98 with the smaller 5 1/4 inch two-way L52. The improvements here were even more obvious, as you might expect. Adding a subwoofer to a small pair of bookshelf speakers will normally bring a smile to your face, and that is exactly what happened here. We then decided to go in the opposite direction and test the Classic 98 with the very large JBL 4367 studio monitor. This is one of our favorite speakers and has incredibly fast and detailed bass response. In this case, what REL told us was spot on, as we felt it was not really a great match for the 4367s. We could just not get it to blend properly and preferred the sound with it out of our system. As a note here, we did previously try the T9X with this speaker and had gotten really good results, which confirms exactly what REL had predicted we would hear. The Classic 98 is a beautiful subwoofer that will likely match up perfectly with any vintage or new design vintage speaker that has limited bass response from around 50 Hz and down, which is a whole lot of speakers from the vintage era and many smaller new vintage design speakers. Now, if you have a speaker that has more serious bass capability and speed, you'll probably be better off with the REL T9X. And another great thing I'll just mention again is if you have a vintage receiver or integrated amp without a subwoofer out and you've been itching to add a subwoofer, the Classic 98 will be a perfect solution with its speaker level connection system. If you have more questions about the REL Classic 98 subwoofer or any other audio or video gear, check out audioadvice.com, where we have a wealth of buyer guides, reviews, and even our free home theater design tool. You can also contact our team of experts via phone, chat, or email, or even stop by one of our award-winning showrooms and we'd be happy to help you out. And be sure to leave us a comment down below and let us know what you think of the new REL Classic 98 and if you'll be picking one up for yourself. And if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.